We'd all like those kind of days, and once in a while we may have one and go, wow, that was a real blessing. But I think they can be actively created, at least the environment, so these days happen quite often. And instead of being extraordinary, they become more like your ordinary day, where people flow in this energy all the time.
Hello, my name is Aaron Wexler, and welcome to another episode of Within the Game. Let's go. Within the Game is all about sharing inspiration. And thank you for being here. Thank you to the listener. Thank you to the viewer on YouTube. A great way to support the show is I'll do all the action steps: subscribe, like, comment, all those things. And I really appreciate you, the listener, for being on this podcast journey with me. And another good way to support the show is to grab a copy of my book, The Inspired Athlete, which is like this idea that the energy of the inspired athlete is within you. And so that book can help you evoke that energy more. Also, please shoot me a message on Instagram at Within the Game Podcast if you want to connect and be a part of the show. And please follow and support my guests. Today's guest, I'm very excited about this one, is the one and only Dr. Joe Gallenberger. Dr. Joe, thanks so much for being here.
Well, my pleasure, Aaron.
Let's go, Dr. Joe.
Okay.
Dr. Joe is a psychologist, author, and expert in the power of manifesting and the ability to shape reality with your mind. With over 30 years of experience, Dr. Gallenberger has worked closely with the Monroe Institute, where he's explored consciousness, energy, and the science behind manifesting. He's the author of the book and meditation download, Liquid Luck. I have the book right here, and has led groundbreaking workshops worldwide on topics like abundance, psychokinesis, and heart-centered living. Dr. Gallenberger, I appreciate you. It's an honor to have you here. And the first question I like to get into with all my guests is this concept and idea of inspired living. What does that mean to you?
I think primarily it would be living from the heart, and rather than the mind. And so rather than responding to the shoulds of culture, you have a deep knowledge of yourself, and you desire to express that to the world, knowing that that will be the best thing you could do to contribute to the world.
Love that. I read your book, Liquid Luck, and I've been listening to the MP3 download. I highly recommend it. You guys can go to syncreation.com, which I'll link below this, to check that MP3 out. But you basically have this way to calibrate the reader or the listener, that's my experience anyway, to this idea of linking up or syncing up with what you want. So knowing that, I would love for you to answer the question of the inspired athlete or the entrepreneur. How does what you do affect that idea of a person?
The Liquid Luck book actually came out after the meditation Liquid Luck. And what I was trying to do was condense 30 years of experience in this area of manifestation into giving people an experiential knowing taste within a half hour or so meditation. And to me, it equates very much to the zone in sports. This idea with a day that everything flows beautifully, all the synchronicity, serendipity is there. You have the courage to act once you get the intuition of which direction to act in. And that's true for entrepreneurs too, that if you can have a day like that, you can really move your ideas forward, your creativity forward. And so we'd all like those kind of days, and once in a while we may have one and go, wow, that was a real blessing. But I think they can be actively created, at least the environment, so these days happen quite often. And instead of being extraordinary, they become more like your ordinary day, where people flow in this energy all the time. So within the meditation, I wanted an image that would capture people's imagination. And so a lot of people are familiar with the Harry Potter books. And in there was a potion called Liquid Luck, where if you'd take a little drink, you'd have an amazing day. And so I used that image, and into the container in your mind, you would put happiness, abundance, gratitude, compassion for others, which gets you out of ego, feelings of good fortune, feelings of praising the world. And so you're putting in the feeling state that usually you would have after an amazing day as an entrepreneur in sports. So before the win, you create the energy that you'd have after a win, if you will. You could look at it that way. And it seemed to appeal to people and trigger imagination. The main thing in the way is fear in all kinds of forms, and it usually comes out self-conscious, those kind of things. And it gets away in our natural abilities as entrepreneurs, sports people, in relationships, all kinds of things. And so the image is designed to transcend fear. And, other things like my home study course would go into depth of how to clear it. But for the time of Liquid Luck, you transcend fear for that day and trigger that. So people won lotteries 3 weeks in a row, $1,000 scratch tickets each, sold businesses, solved invention problems that had been bothering teams for 3 years, all kinds of things one's listening to Liquid Luck. And in sports, we've gotten a lot of the parents enjoying Liquid Luck gave it to their kids and maybe said to their 10-year-old, listen to this. And all of a sudden they got better times. And if it was running, more goals in soccer, whatever it might be, they said, boy, my kids never performed as well. So we found out Liquid Luck worked great for sports too.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was telling you before this that I was listening to it on my bike ride this morning, and it is really grounding.
Mhm.
What I and we're talking about the MP3, the download right now, the Liquid Luck meditation that you made. I really appreciate it. I like it. It put me in a great state of mind.
Mhm.
So I appreciate that. And yeah, like I said, I think we should maybe explore more about that for athletes, because we as athletes, we want to be grounded and be who we really are, and then show up
Mhm.
in that way more.
Yes.
Um, could you maybe talk about manifesting as what is that? Like manifesting, and the reason why I'm asking is because I've been having this conversation more with my people in my life, because I had this date on the calendar. I knew you were going to come on, and so I've been talking about this concept of manifesting. So I'll share what has come back to me, but I would like to ask you about that. What even is manifesting?
So the term is used most often to designate being much more conscious and active in creating your own reality. So most people say we're manifesting all the time, but we might be manifesting out of victim or nothing good ever happens to me. Culture has a lot of phrases like nothing good comes easy, no pain, no gain, waiting for the other shoe to fall. And those things create the background mentally of what we can have as our reality. And some are real important, like in the spiritual communities. I'll say, how many of you are seekers? And a lot of hands go up.
Right.
And I say, wouldn't you rather be a finder? That's a different energy, okay? And so we look at all that kind of stuff, conscious and unconscious in manifesting. It's almost never or never that you're not deserving enough or you're not talented enough or those kind of things. But our own thoughts and feelings can get in the way and block things that are natural. Naturally, we are very amazing creatures. I love the Cirque du Soleil shows. I've been to Vegas for 100 workshops that I did out there. So I've seen all the shows more than once. And you see the beauty of the human body. And yes, training, very important. But going on stage as an actor, going on into performance as a sports person, usually there's a little bit of yips and jitters in the background. Your mind gets active. Oh, this is important today. How will I do today? Look at the other team. They look, better than we do this week. Whatever could be there. And the main challenge is to shut down all that chatter. And I found the best way is to move into your heart and to move into unconditional love. So you can put out fear by meeting it with courage, but it's sort of like putting out brush fires. It'll pop up here and there. But if you go into your heart, and what is your passion for the sport? What is your passion for the job and the company you're creating or whatever it is? Why do you see it as benefit for yourself and others? And you come from that activates your heart. That's where you become near invincible, if you can allow that to flow. So the meditations we do and the kind of work we do is basically designed in manifestation work to clear the field of the things that is in the way, because I think we naturally are very creative.
So do I have it right where manifesting is the act and the manifestation is the result?
Yeah, we'd say manifestation being a noun, but it would be like I had some surgery. It was a delicate surgery that very few people know how to do. I'm in a rural area. I manifested an amazing doctor, and the timing for him he was usually a year or 2 years to even get an appointment. He saw me the next day. I manifested the ideal physical therapist who had a specialty in ankle mechanics, which is where the operation was. So that would be what I'm manifesting at that point. Before that, I might have focused on, can I heal this mentally? And for 55 years in my case, I was able to keep that injury under good management. But eventually looked like it was appropriate to go to surgery. Then I used my manifestation skills to make that go really well. It's worked out really well, yay. Because it's important to be able to walk with comfort. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. So let's lean into this idea of manifesting because, so I told you I reached out to part of my community.
Yes.
Online and in person. I've been kind of having this conversation of like, do you believe in manifesting? And, I do, first of all. I want you to know that I'm a big believer in the law of attraction. And I think that we're all alchemists and we all have magic that we can kind of tap into and use. But someone said something that I thought was interesting. I thought I would bring up, and this could be relatable to the audience too. And if someone's listening and they're like, manifesting, yeah, whatever. There is something about that word. It's being thrown out quite a bit right now in society. And one of my friends said there's something about that word that irks them. And I said, oh, okay, well, what about it irks you? And they said, well, in the spiritual community, many people might believe that you could just sit on a couch and manifest a Ferrari and then the Ferrari just shows up. Right. And so that I think kind of stems from the book and the movie The Secret, where you could just kind of think about it and feel what it's like. But I think there's a missing part of the action. So I think I want to ask you about this irkiness, where people might hear that word manifest and like kind of shrug it off and they're irked by it. Does that resonate with you?
Excuse me. Yes, I have problems with it too because of things like in The Secret. They inspired a lot of people, but a lot of things to me were missing. One was the shadow part of us that holds thoughts like I'm not deserving or good enough. Right. The other is you could sit on your couch a long time and the Ferrari's probably not going to drop out of the sky. But so that it implies that you don't have to do a bunch of action and take actions that may involve risk and courage. And I think that's part of it too. So I'd agree with you that word. So some people like the creating or co-creating your own reality, because we are a culture. We, as a group, create things, and maybe even we create with spirit, our higher selves, God, whatever you want to label it. And we have more influence than domination, So we may have a plan, and there's phrases like "when man plans, God laughs," that kind of thing. So if the word irks someone, I would just say, what word would you use to capture what you've done to create something in your life that was of real high value to you, the person you married, to create the environment. Well, I courted them and I dated them and I gave them presents and I was my best self and I dressed nice and I da 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 da. And I asked a lot of questions about what they liked. And so I showed I was interested in them as in a person, not just to get something from them. And I became a good friend before we were ever lovers, or whatever it might be. And you could say, okay, that's all manifesting or creating an environment where what you desired to be with this person in a very intimate and deep way, and maybe a lifelong way, came to about. And so whatever word they want to give that. And they may say, I don't think they'd say it was just luck. My book, Liquid Luck, the title is a little bit of a dig because a lot of times when things happen good to the entrepreneur, for example, or even the sports person, they go, oh, you were just lucky. And there is some good fortune in sports. We find that most basketball players are born a certain month of the year because they go to school and start first grade at a little older age that month than people 6 months younger. So they get picked for teams and they get opportunities that not everybody has picked in other months. And so there is good fortune and there's blessing, but then they work their tail off and they sacrificed in many ways to put in all the hours of practice. So it's a dance between your own efforts and the blessings that come your way by a position of birth and who your parents were and who your friends were and having a good coach and a good mentor in entrepreneurship. So the secret was a little less sophisticated by just saying, oh, think it and it'll be so.
Right.
Thinking is important.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for being a fan of the show. I really appreciate your support. And if you'd like to further support the podcast, please grab a copy of my book, The Inspired Athlete. The Inspired Athlete is all about my personal growth journey, my athletic journey, my spiritual journey, all combined into one. And really the idea is that the energy of the inspired athlete is within us all, and it's up to us to evoke that. And whether you consider yourself an athlete or a competitor or not, it's my belief that the energy of the inspired athlete is within us. Even if you just decide to take a deep breath and just move your body, that's the inspired athlete. So it would mean a lot if you could help support the book project as well as the podcast by grabbing a copy. Links to the Amazon paperback version as well as the Audible audiobook version are listed below in the description. Thank you very much for your support. Stay inspired, y'all. Yeah, for sure. So let's rewind a little bit. So we got connected because I saw you as a guest on Timothy Schultz's podcast. And Timothy Schultz has been a guest on this podcast twice.
Yes.
And we've talked a lot about this idea of manifesting. And I want to kind of get into this idea of fun, because what I've learned about you is that you've done all this studies about, manifesting and energy work and being heart-based, which I want to definitely get back into. But then you've kind of you actually wrote another book called Inner Vegas.
Yes.
And you tried to have fun with this idea of like, what could I do with this manifesting power? Could I affect some dice in a gambling situation? Could I affect cards? Could I affect, kind of tapping into psychokinesis here, but could I affect outcome? And I think that's really interesting. Talk about that a little bit. How you've been able to tap into this world of manifesting, alchemy, and then incorporated fun with it.
Yeah, well, yes, fun, real important. And it started for me in terms of experience with this was going to Princeton Engineering Anomalous Research Lab. And they had what they call psychokinesis task, which is affecting matter with your mind's intent moving through your energy. So that could be growing seeds, getting root growth of 1.5 inches in 2 minutes, lighting light bulbs and measuring 400 volts off your hands, bending metal, affecting slot machines and dice, those things. And as I did that, boy, it was fun. It was a very high energy state. So when we go out to Vegas, we have tables reserved just for us, for dice, for example. And if people are one with each other, grounded, you mentioned that word, very important, connected to spirit, feeling gratitude and love and happiness, they get rewarded with money within minutes. If they go to greed, fear, ego, it's withdrawn. So those psychokinesis tests for me became the feedback device because even in sports and definitely with entrepreneurship, you can work out for weeks and weeks and weeks and not see much change. And people get discouraged. And so we were looking for something where within minutes of being in the right state of mind and heart, you could get feedback that you were in the state or in the zone. And the gaming environment really served that well. Scientific laboratories serve that well as well. So that's where that came from. And I think it's what's missing a lot of times is, people say do this and do that to live a good life, and the feedback about doing that is too slow.
Yeah, agree. Could you
Yeah.
quickly share a story about you winning at a slot machine? I heard you on another podcast.
Well, there's lots. Basically, I went at the end of a day of workshop stuff, and I'm kind of an introvert, so I wanted to be by myself at the end of the day. And I said, I'd like to have a royal flush in hearts on a slot machine, which is 160,000 to 1 by chance. I sat down, and people in the group found me immediately. Oh, there you are. And I had a second. I could have said, would you go away, please? I've worked with you all day. That wouldn't have felt good. I could have said, sit down, sure, and not meant it, and that wouldn't be genuine. But I opened my heart further and said, sure, sit down, I'll show you. And first pull, I got the royal flush in hearts. And they were there to take my picture and give me hugs, and it was even better than being alone. But you had to be in a genuine space. Before that, I had meditated and visualized my goal, much like you would do as an entrepreneur in sports. And this is natural, PK, but natural doesn't mean easy. Sleep is pretty natural for people usually. Oh, getting tired, I think I'll go to bed. And then you go to bed and you think of something else and you fall asleep. But if I said, Aaron, tonight I'm going to put you on TV in front of a big audience, I'll give you $1 million if you fall asleep in an hour, you probably couldn't. What's changed? Now you're efforting, now you're self-conscious. So a lot of what we do, training, is to get rid of the self-consciousness. And in piano playing or in sports or other things, there's a lot of over-learning, a lot of practice so that you don't have to think about the notes, you don't have to think about the moves. But then to go from technically good to the top of your field, you have to get out of the way. All of that becomes automatic, and you can move into your heart and move into your visioning of your success and those kind of things. But, I could vision success all day as a basketball player, but if I've never practiced, it's not likely.
Yeah,
Just like the Ferrari falling out of the sky.
right, right. So, okay, so this is good. So let's explore this more.
Sure.
So basically, you're saying the efforting could get in the way, right? And it's a
Mhm.
little bit of a paradox to the athlete, right? Because that's kind
Yes.
of all we do is try hard and go
Yes.
for it, right? We
Yeah.
push ourselves. But there is something called the art of allowing. I would love
Mhm.
for you to tie that in and really lean into that. What do you mean by that? What is the art of allowing?
So yes, efforting is appropriate when you're learning like a golf stroke, hold how to hold the club, whatever. And when they tell you to put your feet this way and your back that way, it feels unnatural. Okay. But that's not what you want to be thinking about when you're on the course and playing a game. At that point, you have to move to a level of trust in your body and in your training. And you might even, in the work I do, we even allow, like, I'd love to roll the best at the table on dice. But when I'm there, I allow that maybe when you get the dice, you do better. And then the next person you shake hands with, you cure them of a cancer they didn't even know they had. I don't know the universe and how it works well enough to know whether I should win today or not. I know my ego wants to win. Okay, there might be a big money prize, whatever it might be, or fame. But I go even beyond that to allow what's best for everyone concerned, including myself. And it may be, you know, it's better for me not to win there. And so I stop playing football and I do something else that I find super better for my life. Or it may be I allow and I have a whole life of football. And that is the best life for me this time. I don't know. I know only what my ego thinks. So for me, allowing is a giving over to higher power a little bit, which we know even from addiction work, which is something where your mind is going over and over about a substance or gaming or whatever the addiction is. Can be power, can be, you know, a lot of things, not just substances. And what they say is one big cardinal point is allowing a higher power to come in and give some things over. So I have a phrase that surrender is just giving up the illusion of separateness. And another one of my phrases is fear is expensive, love is priceless, choose wisely. So if you combine those and then you go into your entrepreneurship or your sports or whatever is on your passion list at the moment, it's going to go better.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful.
And thinking you know best. And so one of the biggest things we know, even as entrepreneurs, if you think you're an expert in everything, you know, and you don't allow other people to help you, and you don't allow new feedback about market changes. There's a book called Creative Destruction. People have to destroy their companies sometimes to be flexible enough to continue. So success in sports, in writing a book, in entrepreneurship can be a real challenge to handle, because it tends to mute the allowing. Oh, now I got it.
Right.
You know.
Right.
And you know, I would recommend. You know, one person I admire amazingly was Tiger Woods. He destroyed his game and rebuilt it, not only once, but best I know twice. That takes some guts.
Thank you to new sponsor of the show, StretchLyfe, located in Manhattan Beach, California. StretchLyfe offers assisted stretching for anyone who wants to enhance their flexibility practice. And if you're like me, muscle tightness is something I deal with on a daily basis, whether I'm in the gym training or out on the beach playing beach volleyball, or even sitting here doing this podcast. It's a challenge to make time for the daily stretch routine. And so I've been working with Amir over the last couple months over at StretchLyfe, and I can tell a big difference in the way I feel. I have more range of motion, I have more energy, more muscle control, and just overall less pain. StretchLyfe is offering Within the Game listeners 50% off your first session. Just mention Within the Game when you book online or when you call in for the discount. And also, if you do not have access to the StretchLyfe studio, but you still want to learn more about how to enhance your flexibility practice, Amir is offering a free 20-minute phone call where he can share specific stretches and other specific tools that can help you. So visit StretchLyfe.com, that's StretchLyfe spelled with a Y, to book your first session, and hope you enjoy the rest of the show. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's move into flow state, because I think that's pretty aligned with where we're headed in this conversation here, and really what the audience I think would want to know, which is like how to get into that flow state, whether it's in sport, in business, or just in everyday life.
Yeah. So I'm going to go back to the Liquid Luck meditation. They can see it written out in the book Liquid Luck, which is Audible and Kindle and Amazon, or they can do the meditation, which I recommend because we use some special brainwave patterning by listening over headphones that allows people to move into the state I'm going to talk about more quickly. But even on your own, if you sat there and you closed your eyes, you had 10 minutes to prepare for whatever you're going to do, and you thought, okay, and said to yourself, I am happy. And you allowed feelings of happiness to be there. We find that's highly important. We can take photographs in high school of graduation pictures and know a real smile from a fake one. And those people with real smiles have better lives. Same for happier essays at the beginning in a monastery. The next 40 years, the people are eating the same thing, believing the same thing. The happy people do better. So you say, I'm happy, you feel it, and you bring it in. And then you think of ways you're abundant. And it might be the abundance of being able to see the beauty of nature. It doesn't have to be financial. The abundance of friends, of animals in your life that have been pets, until you genuinely feel abundant. And then you allow genuine feelings of gratitude to be there for that. These things each can take 30 seconds to a minute, okay? And then I say I'm compassionate. I open up to be of benefit to not only myself, but the world. That helps, okay? And then I praise all just as it is. I have a trust in perfect imperfection wherever I am, wherever the weather is today for the event, whoever is in the meeting as the entrepreneur, it's all perfect. That kind of a feeling. And I am fortunate, or I am lucky. Hopefully anybody listening to this, you're lucky you were born now versus the 13th century. You're lucky maybe of where you were born, and many, many more things. Know how to read and write, okay? So you go to as basic as you need to feel gratitude and to feel lucky. And now you say, the whole world is a miracle. My human hands, it's the miracle of the human hand, everything it can do. So I live in a miracle space, and now I just create the cherry on top of the sundae, this other miracle of me winning this race, or of having 10 times the sales I've ever had, or whatever the miracle might be. That just becomes the final beautiful garnish on top of all this beauty that you already have. That's what I mean by moving into that state. Does that make sense, Aaron?
Yeah, absolutely. I think something else that comes up for me as I listen to you is, again, going back to where we started, which is being heart-based. Maybe you could explain that a little bit deeper for me and for people.
Sure. We're talking about love. Love can be generated by seeing on YouTube a video of soldiers returning from war being reunited with families, or holding an infant, or petting a kitten. Many things will soften our hearts and cause love to flow, but it tends to disappear the first time you get a negative phone call or whatever. You begin to learn how to have that heart open more often. I have a meditation called Ocean Heart. It was designed after my brother committed suicide. Things were rough, and I did not want to leave my heart closed and broken. And so in this image, your heart becomes a vast ocean of love. And much like an ocean of water, if I wanted you in my life, Aaron, it'd be like a hand going into water. You're fully enveloped into me. And then if you leave, the water goes back to complete, perhaps losing a drop. And so that image of Ocean Heart has allowed people to handle COVID, the politics lately, all kinds of things in the world that are tough to look at, and to stay compassionate and open-hearted rather than defending against that stuff. When you do that, that is what I'd mean by open heart. You are... And the signs are, things are lovely. Everything looks beautiful, even a chair from Kmart or something. You can appreciate the architectural form. When your heart is closed, the dandelion looks like a weed. When it's open, it looks like a beautiful yellow flower. And people are kind of like that. You see the good in them, or you see the defensiveness and the fear and their efforts. Another thing that can help the heart be open is getting your energy directly from source in unlimited quantity and quality. And most of us don't do that. And so then we try to get energy from other people, and we perform roles like the good boy and the good girl, the bad boy, the bad girl. And that energy is pretty low quality, and people can manipulate you. Oh, you want to be the pleaser? here, please me. Okay. So in the work I do, we shift to getting the energy and beautiful flow from God or from source or beauty from nature, wherever it could be for a person. That helps the heart stay open because you
That's
don't feel vulnerable the same
yeah.
way.
No, that's beautiful, doctor. I really like that. I think anyone listening can incorporate that today, where whenever you're listening to this, and I'm gonna do that too. I'm gonna try to do my
Okay.
best to keep my heart open today.
Yes.
Yeah, and you know what? It reminds me. Are you familiar with Dr. Bradley Nelson's work, The
Not
Emotion
much,
Code?
not by the name. What's the work
So
name?
so it really reminds me of his work. So he wrote a book called The Emotion Code,
I know
and
that book, yes.
yeah, and he's talking about there actually could be something called a heart wall, which a lot of people develop even
Hmm.
unconsciously over, over time where certain things happen. I'll put it in context of an athlete, right? Losses, right?
Hmm.
Or injury, or and even an entrepreneur, like, bankruptcy, things that happen, or someone manipulated you in a bad way. What that can
Sure.
do is create a wall around your heart because
Yes.
you're trying to protect yourself from more pain. If
Hmm.
someone is listening to this and is like, yeah, I think I have that. I have a heart wall, a wall around my heart. How can they start to break that wall so they can become more heart based in all that they
Good.
do?
Good. Well, again, I have a meditation called the Forgiving Heart because it'll involve forgiving yourself and the other person or forgiving the event. But what happens within that, you need to have a talk to what we might call the guardian within you, who is keeping the wall up to protect you, and be able to begin to say, how could we safely take some of this wall down? I would like to protect myself from hurt by being more intuitive, protect myself from hurt by being more discerning, by getting my energy directly from source, so I'm not so needy. And maybe where I'm going to start with is I'm going to go to the grocery store next time, and the person I'm going to pick for checking out my groceries, I'm going to pick the person who's most likely to smile back if I smile. And just go in and smile and see if they smile back. And the guardian might say, that sounds like an okay experiment. That's safe enough. And then little step by little step, the guardian begins to say, hey, you got this. You're being able to protect yourself without being bitter, rejecting things before they reject you, by a different way, being more intuitive, being more in touch, being more heart open. So that would be one way I'd look at kind of healing that. But the power of meditation, that's why I mentioned the meditation, is that you can move beyond ego and move into a deep state of awareness and connection with spirit and with your body, and asking your body's help with this, because often these are frozen in the body in a way that makes your body language weird in a meeting if you're an entrepreneur, in a way in sports that makes you not as fluid
Okay.
or as strong. So the meditative state is a place to work on that. And you can get much more rapid change than if you just try to think your way through.
Yeah, no, 100%. I really do appreciate the idea of playing with it, right? At the grocery
Mhm.
store, or even on the bigger picture of what we're talking about, manifesting, like playing with the idea of, can I manifest a parking spot, right? Or can
Yeah,
I, you know what I mean? Like just
sure.
throughout the day, just playing with these things. But what you kind of mentioned is this EQ stuff, which I'm fascinated by that. Emotional intelligence and even emotional regulation. Could you tie those two things into something that you mentioned, which is shadow work? And for people
Yeah.
listening who's like, what is that? Well, maybe actually I'll turn that over to you. Maybe you can explain what that is.
Yeah, well, I use the term shadow work. It comes from Carl Jung, big psychologist idea. The things that are out of our awareness that can be operating. Like if we are trying to get a relationship going, but we've been hurt by our parents or other relationships, probably within the shadow is going to be anger about times people have hurt us in the past, doubt about our own worthiness, distrust of other people. And so on the surface might just be, I'm lonely. I'd like someone to be in my life. So the shadow would be the stuff it's harder to look at because sometimes it's a little uncomfortable to look at. And emotion code, being emotionally sophisticated, emotionally mature, involves being able to take feedback. Somebody else can be very effective at telling you what your shadow is because they can say, you know, you're an impatient SOB, or you very easily forget all the other people that have helped you get where you are, or whatever it might be. And you can say, you know, get annoyed with them and maybe even say, I'm no longer your friend. I unfriend you. But instead you could say, this is important feedback. And so friends and therapists are good at identifying shadow work that may need to be done. I have a course that has 3 coachings with me. It goes on, 100 pages, lots of stuff to do. There's a lot of beautiful exercises that feel like wonderful to do to bring in the highest of energy. But there's a couple shadow exercises, one called Abundance Tree, that's on my website in writing, where you make lists of what you might feel guilt about, what you might feel lack about, and you put them through a wood chipper and transform that energy. But that one, a lot of people skip doing it for a while. And then when they finally get to it, they go, wow, that's the most important exercise in the course for me. Because shadow work stays shadow because it's uncomfortable. And if you want to get to the top of things, you got to go into the uncomfort once in a while.
You gotta lean into it, right?
Yeah. You actually go, oh, there's where I can work.
Right. And when you say work, like the work, you hear that a lot in the spiritual community. Is all this stuff the work? All of it?
Yeah, and again, it could be the play. You could say, if you're feeling secure enough and you get in your energy and you do feel loved from source, then this becomes playful. And I think play, to me, is one of the deepest way adults can play. It's the deepest form of prayer.
Yeah.
Because kids play naturally, but as an adult, it can be hard to play and to experiment and try things a different way and a new way. And I think if if you want to use the word God, he or she looking down would admire us as adults, knowing all we know and how we've been hurt in the past. We're still willing to play. And so I say, play to pray if you're an adult.
That's awesome. That's the whole reason for why I started this podcast, right? Because the whole idea of a game, whether it's a sport, a business, it's life, right? We're playing, we're trying to figure it out. We're trying to do our best. In my opinion, the goal is to be the best version of yourself, right? And so all these things contribute to that. And so
I'm going to give you a little story. I was in first grade, first play for my child, Pied Piper of Hamelin. The curtain goes up and all the kids look like this. They're scared and their whiskers are doing this. Bedlam, their whiskers are falling off, their tails are falling off. And the parents in the audience are deep in love and crying, tearful at how their kids are performing and so proud of them. And I looked at that and I said, this must be how God sees us. And the Course in Miracles, the preface says, nothing unreal can be harmed. Nothing unreal exists, I'm sorry. Nothing real can be harmed. Therein lies the peace of God. So that allows you to play. This idea of all these things that seem so important are but a blink of an eye in our lives in spirit and, even in a lifetime here on the planet. 10 minutes of embarrassment compared to all the times you've loved someone or something amazing's happened or you've seen the sunrise over the Grand Canyon, so you got to get to the place where you can take some of those knocks a little bit more easily and just keep playing. Because it's a game. Games can be real serious. You and I, if we played tennis, we could get on the course and want to kill each other during at the tennis match. But if all of a sudden somebody said, gee, I don't feel so well, we'd stop immediately and say, "Oh, what's wrong? Let's take a break." Whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so leaning back into shadow work for just one more minute, and then we'll kind of go
Yeah.
into more of the lighter stuff. In the spiritual community, there's something called the dark night of the soul.
Hmm.
Are you familiar with that phrase?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So for people listening, for me, what that means is in shadow work, there's usually one thing that when you really lean into it, it's intense.
Hmm.
Whether it's fear, whether it's some sort of pain, trauma, whatever that thing is, in the spiritual community, they call it the dark night of the soul, and that's usually the thing that you really need to lean into to kind of create some sort of epiphany or some sort of like maybe it even adds to purpose for you for living in an inspired way. That's my understanding of it. I'd love to pass it over to you. What is this idea of the dark night of the soul?
It started, I think, when people would be monks and nuns, and they would be in beautiful connection with God, and then it would be lost, and they would feel like it all collapsed and they were alone, if you will. Some people say old souls learn by terror, and mature souls deal a lot with relationship, and they learn through agony. That
Mm,
there is a place at which you're called upon to extend beyond your boundaries of comfort. And while you resist that, often it can seem very, very dark and you can feel alone. Part of that can be the heart closing off, like after my brother's suicide. I had to keep moving forward, but the first way was to kind of toughen up, and that can create that feeling of first, it's kind of a gray night of the soul. Things that were happy, things that gave you pleasure before don't. And you begin to not feel good about the third car you buy as an entrepreneur or whatever it is. You feel like things aren't fun anymore. But if you ignore that and you keep going, somebody might have a heart attack. And then now they have to revise their whole life.
mm,
But often it'll involve a time of that feels like I don't even know how I'm going to get out of this.
right.
I'm out of control. Would be words people say. I'm frightened of where this is going to go. Everything I counted on, I can't. I'm not sure you can count on anymore. And within that, often a ray of light shows. That's where and it might be I surrender to God. It might be I start talking to people that I'm not as cool as I've made out to be, and they become more honest or transparent. But it often involves a surrender.
Yeah. I think it's really important. I think it's an important topic to discuss and at least
Hmm.
explore or think about
Yeah,
when it is specifically when it comes to manifesting what you want, because that's kind of what this conversation really is about. And we all
yeah,
want certain things. I
yeah,
mean, Timothy, going back to Timothy Schultz, Timothy, if you're listening, shout out.
yeah,
Timothy Schultz won the lottery, and a lot of people are very interested in that, including me, by the way.
yes.
Because it's just a fun thought, and you think of all the things you could do with that
Hmm.
kind of freedom. But really, at the end of the day, it's not about the money, it's about freedom, right? It's
Hmm.
about that feeling. And even for athletes, when we win, it's not necessarily about the trophy, it's about the feeling of winning, right?
Yes.
And so I think it's important to discuss the shadow work and the dark night stuff, or the gray night stuff, so that we can, because all that stuff is contrast. The
Hmm.
contrast of that is the light. It's
Hmm.
important to really know what we don't want, right? Is that
Yes.
would you agree with that?
Yeah. So again, if you're feeling absolutely fabulous, terrific. If there's a reason why you might be sad, like a loss, pet dies or whatever, yeah, then you can still be heart open but be sad.
Yeah.
But our natural state is one of joy, in my opinion. So if it's not joyful and if it's kind of gray, that would suggest maybe there is a dark night of the soul that needs to happen, or at least the risk of that as you explore why. Am I living a life of shoulds for other people to please them, what my
Right.
father wanted, my mother wanted, whatever? Or is this really what I want to be doing? And it can shift. A person can teach for 20 years and love every minute of it, and all of a sudden it just seems to be a drag. The politics of it, the kids change, whatever is the feeling. And it might be because now they need to become a painter, or now they might need to go and volunteer to help elephant welfare in Africa. Who knows? I'm
Right.
picking one that came to me that a lady had an amazing life as a therapist in a number of things. Then in her 80s, that all seemed kind of dull. So she went, helped elephants. And a shout out again to Tim. I was on his show as well, and he's doing a great job on his channel.
He really is. Yeah,
Yeah.
he really is. So let's pivot or shift a little bit
Okay.
into the light, the light stuff. So what I mean by that is you mentioned that joy is our natural state. The first thought I thought of when you said that was like when you see a newborn baby or a really a small young child, and they're
Hmm.
just laughing uncontrollably, or
Yeah.
they're just experiencing this just outward joy of whatever the thing that they're doing, or they're just not even doing anything, or they're sometimes on Instagram you'll see all these puppies like surrounding a little newborn, and it's just all this laughter and joy. And so knowing that, and knowing that the whole idea of this show, and kind of the idea of what I've tried to bring forth, this idea of the inspired athlete,
Hmm.
which is that state while you're
Hmm.
doing your thing, or being inspired to go do something, and to go, or even just to be in that state. I think that's kind of the goal. How do we shift and tune our vibrational frequency to do that more often?
Um, Probably going to need to first figure out what really your purpose is, or
Mm,
your passion. Because I would be, if you had a magic wand right now and you said I can make you the best in anything, for me it might be a concert pianist, that I could play classical music to the place to bring everybody to tears. And somebody else would say, ick, I hate classical music. Okay. And they would like to run the 3.5 minute mile or whatever it might be. Okay. Or make $1 million. And so you start with what is what you want. Unfortunately, we all don't want to live in the same place or do the same thing. Okay. And the variety is to be applauded. Within that, then, I would probably say why. You know, if I love being a teacher, but I knew I didn't want to teach middle school kids in a public school, because I celebrate anybody who's willing to do that. But that wasn't going to be my thing. Why would I want to teach? What am I hoping? I learned by now that I learn as much from teaching as I teach, and it keeps me fresh every day, learning something new. It satisfies a deep sense of curiosity and exploration. And I could go on for an hour why I love teaching. Okay? And you should be able to go on for an hour of why you love doing what you're doing. And if you go, I don't even love what I'm doing, I'd start there.
cool. That's super cool. I love what I'm doing right now, so that makes me feel
Yeah,
happy. I love
yeah.
connecting with people like you, and specifically doctors. I have just this deep curiosity just to pick your guys' brain. I just love that
Okay.
you have this passion to help, this
Hmm.
passion to serve,
Hmm.
and I really relate to that. I have that too. But okay, so vibrational frequency, I want to go back to that, because that seems to be part of manifesting. It seems to be part of the law of attraction. You have
Yes.
we haven't really talked about that yet. Maybe this is a good time to talk about that.
Okay,
How
well,
you
I'm going to
activate.
start with it's like a barometer. If things look ugly to you and all your vibrations low, if it seems flat to you, your vibrations flat. If the beauty of a sunset can reach you, or a beautiful bouquet of flowers, your vibration's a little higher. If it gets a little higher than that, you begin to see the energy fields around people and around the mountains, and you begin to see the beauty in ordinary things. And if it goes higher, believe it or not, in my experience, you can begin to see through physical matter. If you go higher, you can hear angelic choirs. If you go higher than that, you can have a feeling of ascension, being able to come and go from physical life with no need of death. There's all kinds of levels of vibration, okay? And the peak experiences in sports and the peak experiences, when I first wrote my first book, and it was accepted, it was a kind of a Stephen King novel, and it was accepted by a publisher. I danced all around the house. I'm so excited. I can't, I'm about to lose control. I think I like it. Those peak experiences, those are high vibrational states. But so this whole idea I just mentioned was to see where you are and have the intention to go higher than that in steps, and what might take it that way. Well, my heart's a little closed. I live a little too much in my head. My body has been sitting in a chair by a computer for 20 years. It needs to get moving. It needs to be able to flow energy better. So you look around, I might need to change my diet. I'm going to pick on Cheetos. I always buy a bag of Cheetos when I go on a car trip. But if my diet was all Cheetos, I might need to change that to get a higher vibrational rate. So that's what I would mean. You agree, Aaron?
Yeah, well, right. Well, yeah. So basically what I'm hearing is your vibrational state is a reflection of basically all the choices that you're making, whether it's
Mhm.
nutritional, people, am I in front, geography, where you're at, but
Yeah,
it's also a reflection of your emotional state together,
yeah,
right? It's your
yeah.
choices, your emotional state that kind of
Hmm.
creates vibration, right?
Hmm. Yes,
Yeah.
in my feeling.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just fascinated by that because there is no like one answer to that. We all have to try to figure out what that means. But
Hmm.
in the idea of manifesting and this, I'm getting more and more interested in the spiritual world, and I'm trying to kind of bridge the gap with sports and business and
Hmm.
spirituality and growth, right?
Yeah.
It seems to be that actually is the priority, is to
Hmm.
increase one's frequency throughout the day.
Okay. That's the one way you could put it, or a sign that you are in that mode of flow. And all of it's necessary. I'm a musician, among other things. Maybe not the world's best, definitely, but I love music. The bass notes, the density, the deepness. Without that, music would be tinny, wouldn't be good. So there's things about being on Earth, and this goes back to the grounding, that's the bass notes. Some spiritual people try to ignore that and go high vibration only. To me, the whole spectrum is beautiful, and you want to be able to embody and vibrate to the entire spectrum. So you vibrate at a grounded level, but you also vibrate on the highest of notes, rather than trying to get high all the time and no low notes. Is
Sure.
it making sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Harmony. I play guitar
Yeah,
myself, so I'm all
yeah,
about that.
yeah, yeah.
There's a couple more things that I want to explore here. Um, so we're talking about manifesting, we're talking about increasing one's vibration. There's something about letting go that plays a
Yes.
role into
Yeah.
both of those things. This is coming up in my life right now in a very challenging way.
Hmm.
Um, and when I think about it on the bigger picture, okay, so there's a couple things. So letting go. First of all, let's go back to the lottery idea because that's where we
Okay.
connected through Timothy and all that. The idea about yes, I want that so bad. Oh my God, there's a big jackpot tonight, right? Like, yeah, I want, but then you also let it go.
Yes.
You're like, cool, I'm gonna buy my ticket, I'm gonna play, I'm gonna take the action, and then I'm gonna let go of whatever the outcome
Yes.
is. So there's that part of it. In sport, there's like, man, I want to win that tournament. Ooh, I'm gonna do everything I possibly can. I'm gonna focus, I'm gonna meditate, I'm gonna clean up my nutrition, I'm gonna do it all, but then I'm gonna let go of the outcome,
Yeah.
right? So using those two things and using the concept of letting go, how can we all do a better job of letting go, knowing that we want to like go for it?
Well, first, I'd realize you are expert at letting go already. You would not be able to speak if you had to listen to yourself monitoring how you're speaking.
Okay.
You couldn't go to sleep, as I mentioned. If you choose food and swallow it, if you think about it during the action, you're going to choke. So all day you're letting go. You're
Mm,
setting intention, I'm going to eat this, and I let go of the process. I let go of how to speak. I let go of how to go to sleep. And I let go of how to create this company or win this race. So if you can put it in the context of you're already a let go expert, but your ego's in the way going, this is too important to let go.
right.
Okay.
Right.
Well, the ego could say it's so important to breathe. You better put all your attention to breathe. Make sure you're bringing in energy. Make sure you're holding it for only a minute or a second and now letting it out. Instead, you let it go. But breath is more important than any project you're ever going to do, any sport you're ever going to play. Without it, you're going to be dead in about 2 minutes. Okay.
Right.
So does that make sense?
Yeah, it
You have
does.
to
But
argue with your ego a little bit and say, look, you're judging this contest or this race or this lottery win as most important. It's way below eating, sleeping, drinking, breathing. And
totally makes sense. But one of the challenges that I'll bring up in this moment right now, when it comes to letting go, is another person. Let's talk about
okay,
relationship. If you really
yeah,
like someone else and
okay,
you do all the manifesting work you possibly can,
yeah,
and there's a point in time where maybe that person goes in a different direction because we all have free will,
yes,
and you feel stuck because you're like this frustration. You're like, what?
yeah,
I just thought I manifested this, and
yeah,
then you kind of are almost forced to let go because
yes,
otherwise it's too
can be,
painful,
yeah,
right?
yeah. So yeah, that's a level of the game is letting go for your children, letting go for your spouse, and it can be harder to do that than for yourself. And it involves deep, deep respect for the other individual and their path and their freedom. And like we said, for me, I don't know what's best.
Yeah.
And for myself, so how the heck am I supposed to know what's best for them? And that's part of why being human is difficult. If I say to my daughter, you can't go to this party tonight, or you can, she may die. I can't control the outcome. It may be she's in a car accident if I say yes. If I say no, no, she may sneak out and something bad happens. So we have to let go of results for other people, and that takes guts.
Yeah,
Really care
it sure
about them.
does.
Yeah, I'm going to give you about a 5 minute warning because I gotta
Sure.
go do something else in a little bit.
No problem. Last two things here. Synchronicity.
Okay.
This comes up quite a bit, and even your website, Sync Creation, right?
Yes.
Talk about synchronicity when it comes to manifesting.
When that vibration gets really high, what we do see in the heart open is an increase of how things come about in seeming a coincidental way that are very favorable. So we call it serendipity or synchronicity. And it could be that you're just finding yourself listening to Tim's show on lotteries at just the right time,
Right.
whatever it might be. And what we see that is a sign of the energy being high and the energy flowing from the heart. You'll often see a lot more synchronicity, and that makes things go much easier. So if I would like to put out a new tape, like when I put out the meditation Liquid Luck, I just happened to call the right place. It was a guitar store who told me about the person who has the sound lab, who told me about who does CD production, and I had it in my hand in 2 weeks.
It's awesome.
Okay. And somebody else synchronistically came along and suggested the cover artist. And he won $1 million prize with Frito-Lay about his artwork.
Wow.
And he was willing to make my cover. So that would be synchronicity. And so if your
And
energy is good, a lot more will happen.
and and you, okay, so when synchronicity happens, do you like so when it happens for me, I like to recognize it when I see the certain
Yeah.
numbers or when I see, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Are you suggesting that we should like celebrate it, recognize it, or just kind of let it go?
Definitely thank it because that's part of the, to me, universe winking at you.
Okay.
And to me, guidance and the relationship with the universe and with your higher spiritual self are all relationships of love. And um, and so they may give you the lottery number, they may give you whatever, or a flat tire so you avoid an accident. Okay, but all of that should be deeply appreciated because you're not here alone. Your life is being guided, in my opinion,
Love
and
that.
it's guided through synchronicity and other things like that.
Love it. Last question, Dr. Joe,
Yeah.
fulfillment. What does that mean to you, and how can people tap into their own fulfillment?
The changes at different times in life, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, fulfillment may be, oh, that meal was good. I fulfilled my need. I was hungry. Okay. And as you get older, you begin to fulfill yourself through generativity, through contribution back and service to others, through highly creative events and bringing things into form that have never been here in life, like the Inspired Athlete book, whatever that might be, right? So that would be when people do that, they usually feel what we call fulfillment. When they are creating and expressing things that need to be done appropriate to their level. And my grandkids are all under 10 years old. There are things that are fulfilling right now would be kind of a dull for me, but for them, they are top of the list right now.
Yeah.
And I celebrate that with them.
Yeah. I think that's what it's all about, getting to that fulfillment state. Dr. Joe, this has been awesome. I appreciate your time. We'll definitely have to do a part two sometimes. There's so much more to get into, but
I would
just
enjoy
share.
that. Thank
Yeah,
you.
for sure. Just share with people how they can, get in touch with you or follow you or,
Yeah,
websites, all that stuff.
we talked about liquid luck a lot. So if you Google liquid luck, you'll find me in the book. And my website is kind of hard to verbally see. It's www dot, and then the word sync, like from synchronize, SYNC, and then the word creation, CREATION, so syncreation.com. And my name, Gallenberger, if you think of a gallon of hamburgers, you probably put that in, you'll find it too. So I'd love to be of service. My website has a lot of free articles and different things that you might enjoy if you're interested in the kinds of things we talked about today.
Yeah. So awesome. Dr. Joe, appreciate you. For everyone else, appreciate you guys. Stay inspired, everybody. Peace and blessings.
Thank you, Aaron. It was a pleasure to be on.
Thank you.